Before we start to discuss radical functions, we should think about what these things called radicals are and where they come from. Let's start with, what are they? This thing, this shape right here, it's called a radical. And we use these shapes to describe the inverses of a particular kind of function. What kind of function? If I have a function that looks something like x to the fifth, its inverse function involves a radical. F inverse of x is the fifth root of x, and that's how we read this. What does that mean? That means that to say that y equals x to the fifth expresses the same idea as to say that x is the fifth root of y. Now, notice the way that we're writing the number 5. They're the same number. This one is an exponent, so we write this one small and in a superscript. This number is also written small, and it's written inside the little v, the crook of the radical. In particular, this says the fifth root of y, whereas this says 5 times the square root of y. Make sure that when you're writing this, it doesn't look like this. Here, the 5 is in front and full-sized. Here, the 5 is small and inside the crook of the radical. Okay, so maybe it still isn't clear what we mean by this. It is the case that 32 is equal to 2 to the fifth if we multiply 2 by itself 5 times. We get 32. That is the same fact as to say that 2 is the fifth root of 32. What's going on here? This is generalizing the idea of the square root to higher powers. So, of course, 5 isn't unique. We could say, for example, 5 cubed is 125, which expresses the same idea as saying that the cube root of 125 is 5. A couple more things to note about this radical symbol. Radicals are evaluated in the order of operations at the same time as exponents, and they are grouping symbols. We do any arithmetic inside first. A couple of these to try, just evaluating roots. Given that 3 to the 7th is 2,187, find the 7th root of 2,187. And given that 4 to the 3rd is 64, find the cube root of 64. Pause the video and try these now. Alright, well, 3 to the 7th is 2,187, expresses the same idea as to say the 7th root of 2,187 is 3. 4 to the 3rd is 64, expresses the same idea as cube root of 64 is 4.